handicap with these
Oh,
mics.
yeah, sure.
Must be a little higher. Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here. Thank you, Sheila, and thank you to all of you who made it. And thanks to the association that makes this possible. And thanks to all the authors who contributed to this anthology and to my co-editor, Jonathan Alexander from UC California, Irvine. Okay, so here's a book called Bisexuality and Queer Theory. And here's, what we do in this book is we really ask the hard question. What does queer theory look like when we begin to practice love beyond gender? And does it make sense to talk about queer theory if we don't practice love beyond gender? So that's really what inspired this book. And here I'm going to read a little bit from the introduction. According to David Halperin, sexuality in our time is typified by, quote, a crisis of contemporary sexual definition, unquote. What is sexuality? What does it mean to have a sexual identity or orientation? What is the relationship between sexuality as a knowledge construct on the one hand and the often messy flows of desire and practices of love on the other? How and why are some sexual, erotic, and intimate practices normalized and others marginalized? So these are some of the questions that this book explores. And we have launched this project at a critical time in global and human history when practicing love may be more useful as a way to care for than multiply our species. We and our contributors to this volume ask what both constructs can tell us about contemporary arts, the contemporary arts of loving, and the possibilities for thinking the expression of intimacy as both personal and political activity beyond the restrictions of heteronormativity. Bisexuality is often a gateway to erotic pleasures and ecstatic communions beyond sexual functionalism. And it is also the middle ground that deconstructs the binarisms of identity, masculinity, femininity, straight, gay, that the project of queer theory sought to at least blur. Once this middle ground is allowed to become the epistemic portal it has the potential to be, the arts of loving governed by eros, or desire that engenders itself from within, might replace sexuality and its focus on identities and the constraints of identity politics. And I want to just finish a little bit from this introduction and then read a couple of paragraphs from my own article in here. Queer theory is poised to critique this binary thinking, yet paradoxically it rarely considers how bisexuality and the persistence of bi-erotic desires might assist in, augment, or complicate such critique. Hence, we must infer that the discursive gap between bisexuality as a practice of love, shared by players in many erotic communities, and queer theory as a practice of knowledge situated in academia, is what has produced the lamentable separation between the practices of love in some amorous and erotic communities and the production of certifiable knowledge about these loves, a gap this volume intends to bridge. And it's selfish of me, but I do want to read a little bit of my own contribution. It's an article called Plural Happiness. Plural Happiness, Bi and Poly Triangulations in Balasco's French Twist. I don't know if some of you might remember this film. French Twist was a classic of the 90s. For me, this article is a bit of a French prelude to my new project, which is called Amorous Visions. And it's been funded by the University of Connecticut. And it will study the fluid sexual moments in Italian cinema. So I will move to Italian cinema after this prelude with French cinema. So what this article proposes is a bi and poly reading of the French film Gazon Maudit, whose plural happiness reconfigures the ecology of queer theory. Directed by Josiane Balasco and released in 1995, the film is known to Anglophone viewers as French Twist. And the idea that I use here to really understand this film is we often think of philosophy as the love of wisdom, the pursuit of wisdom, but what if we interpret the meaning of this word as the wisdom of love? Then we don't have to go very far to find it. The wisdom of love. The wisdom is love. And that's a little bit what we see in this film, the concrete images of this in the story of French Twist. I don't know if you remember it. There's this butch lesbian whose car breaks down. And there's Victoria Abril, who is married to a guy who's a major philanderer. And then the two women make friends, and then there's this major kiss, and it blows Victoria Abril's mind away. And then everything follows from there. But they end up with this very happy family, where there's two women, two children from the marriage and another child, and then he starts looking at guys too, and he also accepts this larger family. So it's an inclusive happiness. Nobody is pushed out just because reproduction and the species has to continue. So everybody can participate. Okay, so here it is, and I'm not going to take much longer. These inclusive forms of happiness no longer function as closed structures that allow monogamous love to form at the price of the loneliness and the exclusion of the third party, or the unexpected death, even suicide, of the different. Whenever the wisdom of love is the love of wisdom, lose-win games transform into non-competitive games where everyone can win. Symbiosis has its way with amorous rivalry and competition for mates. These win-win games expand the core of the game by bringing the third party in, and are also capable of generating other possibilities of happiness that spin off from each side of the central triangle and other possible triangulations thereof, as happens in French Twist. One might wonder, how can anyone possibly arrive at such joyful and open state of consciousness? Josiane Balasco demonstrates for us in how this can be in a film that most likely marks a path to self-knowledge for her. She positions herself on both sides of the camera as she directs and stars, with herself cast in the central role of a butch lesbian who, out of love for a bisexual woman, ends up a virgin in bed with the bi-woman's reluctant husband. That's a major scene, and I want to close on that scene, remembering that scene. Thank you.